Hello, friend. Welcome to Grandpa's Horror Stories. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your own stories. My name is Stacy White. I am an investigative journalist and I interview monsters. My heels clicked dully on the linoleum floors, and I heard the steel bars rattling back into place behind me. I walked down the long hallway alone, carrying with me a folder, pen, and cassette recorder. I was, at the time, a young journalist and very eager to prove myself. Earlier in the day, my boss had offered me the opportunity to interview an inmate at the local prison, and I jumped at the chance. Serial killer interviews were vogue at the time. However, I was assigned to an alleged child abductor instead. My editor hoped that the fact it was a woman would spark enough interest in our readers. For myself, I was just excited to be there. It was the first real break I'd caught, and I'm sure I was only chosen because Rebecca was already covering another story. A guard greeted me at the end of the hall. He was to remain stationed outside of the interview room. However, should I need anything, I only had to press the panic button under the table, and he would be right there. I took a deep breath and checked that my hair was all neatly back and smoothed out my skirt before opening the door to enter. "Good morning, Molly Doe. My name is..." I started as I walked into the room, but stopped abruptly when I saw the woman I was to interview. She was sitting up straight with hands neatly clasped in front of her. Her long hair was a golden honey brown, and her dark eyes held a luminescent quality under thick lashes. She was youthful with high cheekbones and blush pink lips. Even wearing the plaid gray uniform of an inmate, she was still the most beautiful person I had ever seen, and it caught me by surprise. "My name is Stacy White, and I'm here for your interview," I started again, trying to regain my professionalism. "Hello, Stacy White," she replied politely. Her voice was soft and her teeth were pearly white with sharp canines. I was somewhat disappointed and I felt my excitement fizzle out. In the initial report, it was stated that Ms. Doe was mentally unstable, that she had been uncooperative with investigators, and the courts had to assign her the last name Doe as she insisted that she didn't have one, only a first name Molly. As such, I had been expecting a certain level of deranged behavior, but she was perfectly collected. "Would it be all right if I ask you some questions?" "It's okay if you're nervous," I said sympathetically, trying to offer her some comfort and build rapport. "I'm not nervous," Molly stated calmly in response. She gave no human emotion to connect with. No spark of social recognition between us. It was uncomfortable, to say the least. "Right. Well, I'll just set up and then we can get started all right," I assured as I oriented my notepad and organized the audio recorder. When I was ready, I pressed down the rec button and the tape inside were to life. A moment of silence passed between us as I debated the best way to begin the interview. Would it be too brazen of me to ask outright if she was guilty, or should I assume she was without asking? I cleared my throat, then began. "So, Miss Doe, Molly," she corrected me. "My apologies, Molly. You've been accused of abducting children. Can you answer whether or not these allegations are true? Is your incarceration unjust? Did you do it?" I try, deciding on an upfront line of questions. "I did," the woman answered without batting, and my heart began to race. Perhaps this interview wouldn't be dull after all. Can you tell me why? What drives a person to abduct children? I inquired further. It's what I was told to do, she stated. I see. So you were acting under instruction? Who did the orders come from? I asked, trying to conceal my excitement. This time Molly paused, though for whatever she may have been thinking, no expression crossed her face. I cannot say, she answered finally, and my heart sank. Why can't you say? Can you tell me why you're unable to answer the question? I probed. I am unable to answer because it would be a breach of contract. I cannot speak his name in association with this predicament. Her answer perplexed me. Are you able to elaborate on that? No. I sat back in my seat, exasperated. I wasn't entirely sure what else I could ask that she would agree to answer. Then it hit me. Can you tell me why he ordered that you take children? Again she hesitated a moment, then nodded. I can. She agreed. I had to be the one to take the children because a man named Eric Linnaeus destroyed our supply chain. You see, it's not ordinarily my job. I'm not very good at convincing children to go with me. I unsettled them. Personally, I couldn't imagine why her utter lack of emotion or tonal inflection would scare children. She was like talking to a doll, only I speculate that a living doll would have more zest. Who is Eric Linnaeus? And what do you mean when you say he destroyed the supply chain? I prompted her further, hoping my questions wouldn't be too much. He was a mistake. She chose her words carefully as she began in earnest. When Nathaniel first brought him home, he was not more than an orphan cripple. He was quiet for the most part and walked with a leg brace. They had never before kept a male child freely in the castle. Males serve no purpose once they are grown, so it was an oddity. Nathaniel kept him close most of the time, training him privately so that he might catch up. We believed it to be a fool's errand. The others had been raised from infancy. Of the 50 girls Master chose, only 9 remained, and only 4 were expected to pass the final training. Of my group, 1 was one of only 2 to survive. We didn't believe Eric stood a chance. The others were already 2 years older than he was, and none of them were hindered by any physical afflictions. Still, Nathaniel insisted, and Master was hardly in any position to deny his brother's request. In truth, they were twins, and Master was older. He would inherit the castle and its business in entirety from their father. However, it was Nathaniel whom was the stronger of the 2. A public quarrel may have jeopardized the inheritance. As such, Master chose to instead make me a new contract. I was to spy on his brother and on the orphan in particular. In return, I would be granted youth and beauty for the remaining span of my life. As she spoke, I was beginning to understand why Molly had been declared mentally ill. But it was hard to shake the idea that her beautiful, youthful appearance had somehow been granted to her. When you say contracted, what does that mean exactly? I asked, now curious. In response, the woman showed me her forearms. I sat forward to get a better look and saw that there were a series of shapes seemingly tattooed down the length of her wrists. 2 silver semicircles, 2 complete circles, and a single blackened semicircle. What are they? I asked, confused. They are my contracts. A dark crescent for a gift given ongoing, completed circles for contracts fulfilled, and silver crescents for contracts ongoing. What were the other contracts for? I questioned before cursing myself for being so forward. She readjusted to cover the marks. I can only tell you of 3. I have already disclosed 1 and I am unable to speak of the last 2. However, the first I made when I was 4, I will always be allowed sweets whenever I so choose, and in return the only orders I will obey are those that come from my master. Next, I was gifted the ability to remain hidden if I so choose. No one would know of my presence, under the condition that I would never be able to use my ability against master. Contracts burn hotter, while gifts hurt more, she explained. You made a contract when you were 4? That doesn't sound like it was fair, I commented. No deals with monsters are fair, she mused. However, I don't regret any of them. I have power that you, nor any other, will ever have. That was the first instance I felt uncomfortable in her presence. She had spoken almost as if it were a threat. Then she continued on as if nothing were any different. Once the contract was in place, I began my work. The first true sign that the orphan would cause trouble came only a year later, when Lucien, the twins' older sister, came to visit with her children. The children of monsters grow very slowly. I had not noticed Radomir, her eldest, age at all in the time since I had first met him years prior. For the sake of simplicity, I would say he was the same equivalent age as Eric was. While the siblings discussed business matters, Eric and I were expected to wait patiently by our master's sides. However, Lucien's children were allowed to do as they wished, and Radomir wished to play with Eric. Come fight with me, Radomir whispered to the boy beside Nathaniel. I don't think I would be allowed, Eric replied in a hushed tone. You're a human, you have to do as I say, so I say you're allowed, he countered, and this gave Eric pause. In terms of hierarchy, the child was correct. We are expected to obey all requests and are compelled to follow commands when they are given. However, Eric was property of Radomir's uncle, and that meant by virtue that his orders were intended to come from him only. Is your son very well trained, sister? Nathaniel asked, suddenly interjecting the discussion and catching both children by surprise. It was then that they both realized Nathaniel had been listening to their conversation. Eric turned a shade of red while Radomir looked guilty as all eyes turned to them. Master looked profoundly displeased, but made no comment as Lucien and Nathaniel spoke. You are surely joking, brother. I won't have my son fight your pet. She scoffed. Pity. Has he fallen behind in his training so much that you fear he can't outcompete a human? He said casually, though it was clear his insult found its mark. I'll warn you then, don't blame me, and your pet is injured, she said flatly. Before granting her permission, you may play with the human. All 3 adults watched with curiosity as the children each took up a sword and began to spar cordially. Your pet has an injured leg. There is no contest here, Lucien commented. Our brother has spent a considerable amount of time training the human since he arrived, Master informed her. I have trained him somewhat. There is plenty more still to teach, but he is singularly determined to excel, and I would be interested to know if he is ready to join the others in formal classes. Nathaniel mused, though it quickly became apparent what he meant was that he had trained Eric extensively. Even with his disadvantage, the boy was quick on his feet. He moved using his leg brace to his own advantage. as if it were an extra limb. The first round ended when Radomir was knocked to the ground, and the second round was headed toward the same outcome when he lost his temper. "Why don't you stab yourself with that sword?" He spoke the words as a command, and Eric faltered. Nathaniel sat forward in his chair as if he were about to intervene when the human boy spoke up. "No," Eric responded calmly. This drew everyone's attention. Master looked to me as if to ask if I knew how he was able to resist the command. Lucinda hesitated a moment as if she were trying to understand what had just happened, while Nathaniel looked unmistakably intrigued. "What do you mean, no? That was a command. I told you to stab yourself," Radomir repeated, lacing more magic into it to compel him. Eric seemed to struggle this time, his hand involuntarily turning the blade toward himself. He trembled slightly as he held it there. It seemed he was unable to resist the order entirely. However, he also made no further move to complete the command, and I said no, he reiterated firmly. Radomir looked to his mother now with an expression caught between confusion and fear. How is he able to resist? Lucinda demanded. Nathaniel, however, appeared to be pleased. "Eric is very strong-willed. Your son doesn't have enough magic to persuade him. You've contracted him to resist orders," Master accused. "I have done no such thing," Nathaniel responded calmly. At this his sister narrowed her eyes. "Child, come here," she demanded, and this time the boy moved. He came to stand before Lucinda with an expression of defiance. "Give me your sword." Eric grit his teeth as he did her bidding. "Hold out your hand," she continued, and he did so, though not without reluctance. "Sister," Nathaniel warned with a slight edge to his voice, "I suppose you wouldn't appreciate it if I cut off his hand?" She asked casually. "Eric, come to me." Nathaniel commanded him now, and the boy gladly obliged. "That's quite enough for one day. Though it was pleasant to see you, sister, we will be taking our leave. Make sure you return my sword when you're done with it." As they left, Master motioned for me, and we fell into pace with them. "Brother, you're playing a dangerous game. I saw that smug expression on your face. Lucinda isn't pleased. When have you ever known her to be pleased?" "Her son is inept," Nathaniel responded flatly. "You should destroy the orphan," he warned, "for you see, resisting the persuasion of a glamour is no easy task. In rare cases it can happen, if one possesses the will for it, though usually if a child shows signs that they will be able to defy orders, they are eliminated immediately." The youngest twin looked exasperated now. "Eric, would you go on ahead? My brother and I have some matters to discuss. I will meet you for dinner." Eric looked unsure. "You promise?" he asked quietly. "Yes, child. Now go," Nathaniel said, clearly amused by his hesitance. With that the boy nodded in agreement and followed the instruction willingly. It was strange to see Molly go as well. "See that he makes it to his room safely," Master commanded of me, though it wouldn't have been necessary, and I moved without delay. As I left, I only heard a small amount of their conversation. It seemed Master was scolding Nathaniel for his approach to training Eric, while his brother insisted the bond he was creating could be stronger by far than any forced relationship. At dinner that night, Master still seemed displeased, and when Nathaniel got up to speak with another member of staff, he took the opportunity to retaliate. "Orphan, come, I have something for you," he ordered. "Don't glamour me," Eric protested as he moved involuntarily with the command. It was taboo for him to answer back in this manner, not that he ever let that fact clip his attitude. "I will do what I like. You are property," Master stated harshly. "I think you should have some meat on your plate. Won't you agree?" He instructed, though it seemed more of a test. Even I could feel that there wasn't much compulsion behind the direction given. "No," Nathaniel said, "it's not good for me," Eric responded coldly with some effort. There was rebellion in his eyes. Master smiled. "You're quite good at it, aren't you? Defying orders. If you're prepared," he pandered to him as he pushed a slice of meat onto the child's plate. "I've been practicing," the boy said proudly. "Oh, should we test that then, Tilda?" Master mused. Eric thought for a moment. "Okay." He accepted the challenge confidently. "Wonderful. Then I order you to eat the meat I just gave you," he purred. This time there was little to no visible resistance from the orphan. He seemed to realize then that Master had tricked him. He wasn't at all strong enough to outcompete the full will of an adult, and soon was carving the meat into bite-sized pieces with marked reluctance. He struggled as he brought the first piece up to consume. However, it was as it touched his lips that the second command came. "Stop," Nathaniel said sharply, returning in time to intersect the order. "You will not eat that." Eric dropped the fork and recoiled from the plate as his master continued more calmly. "Brother, I would appreciate it if you didn't try to feed him without my permission," he said firmly. "You don't give him enough protein," Master said bemused. "Feed whatever you like to Molly, but do not interfere with Eric. Do you understand?" He reiterated. "There will come a day when you cannot watch over him. I look forward to that day." Nathaniel ignored him then, for you see the small brothers had always been rivals first and brothers second. Threats between them weren't uncommon. Molly trailed off thoughtfully. "Is that what happens to the children you abducted? They become pets to these people?" I took the opportunity to ask. "Certainly not. As I said, pets are chosen as infants. Grown children are taken to be butchered for food," she explained, and I felt my stomach drop. There were only two possibilities. Either I was indeed getting the serial killer interview I wanted from my career, or Molly was entirely insane. Is that why Eric wasn't allowed to eat the meat? I was beginning to understand. Yes. Nathaniel felt it would negatively affect his pet's morality if he were to consume it. So the nature of it was kept a secret from the child. "But your masters, those people, they do eat it?" Molly nodded. "Of course. The masters need to eat," she responded calmly, as if stating a simple fact. "They need to eat children?" I asked to clarify. This gave her pause. "No, they can eat any meat," she said thoughtfully. Every night the banquet that lined the dining hall was piled with meat of all kinds: beef, pork, chicken, humming. Cooked or uncooked, it mattered not, though they prefer the meat of tender beings as it is a sign of their status. Only high-class families are granted access, and their family business is supply. Flavoring was rarely used. They claimed it spoiled the taste, though I could never tell any different. Unnaturally sweet fruit and ashy cheeses were the garnishes of choice. As a word to the wise, it was best to avoid the fruits. Their taste is singular, comparable to no human food I have ever tried, and it is easy to overindulge in them. I stood up then. I'm sorry. I need a break, I stated. Truthfully, I didn't want to hear any more. I fled. The interview room with my belongings loosely gathered in my arms and the door slammed behind me. If I believed her, Molly was a monster abducting children to eat them as if they were livestock, allegedly acting under the orders of her masters. If I didn't, then I could understand why she was considered mentally unstable. Either way, I hoped to never see her again.